If a man texts me and I'm on my way to do any type of woman maintenance, hair, nails, lashes, wax, and I tell you what I'm doing and you don't offer to pay or you just don't send no money, if you could really lose my number because I don't know, it just bothers my soul knowing I'm telling you what I'm about to do and you know it's gonna involve spending some bread and you ain't sending none.
Financial celibacy, it's the new thing that these young men are focusing on when it comes to dating. And as Unc, I just want to say I'm proud of y'all. We always hear women say, my body, my choice. Rightfully so. But as a man, you should be able to say, my wallet, my choice.
I am financially celibate until marriage. My wallet, my choice.
Men, tell me something. What's something you can't afford, but you stop paying for because you simply don't see the value anymore? Dating, a newer car, nightlife, luxury stuff. And ladies, when a man says, my wallet, my choice, is he becoming cheap? Or is he simply applying the same boundaries to his money that everybody told him to apply everywhere else? Some might say something strange is happening with men and money. And if this keeps growing, dating apps, restaurants, car companies, luxury brands, and maybe even the marriage market could feel it. Not because men suddenly run out of money. That's the part people keep getting wrong. Except some men have the money, they're just getting a lot more selective about who gets it. One guy keeps his old truck. Another stops dropping $150 on first dates. Another cancels a dating app. Another looks at the newest phone and says, mine works. Individually, nobody cares. But when enough men start asking the same question, is this actually worth my money? Now you have something businesses pay attention to. Because there's a huge difference in a man saying, I can't afford it, and a man saying, I can afford it, but I just don't want it. The first guy may come back when he has more money. The second guy, now you have to convince him your product, your experience, or even your relationship is actually worth the price. And that is where this gets good.
If I were to take you on a first date, how much would you want me to spend?
Wait for it. This will surprise some of you.
Less than $120.
That's right. And let's hear the common sense reasons why that is.
Why is $120 the max?
Because I don't really need anything. I can eat at Cheesecake Factory, Chili's. I can eat anywhere. Like, it's just food. Like, you could go to a taco spot, a food truck, and still have an amazing day. It's an amazing date. It's just about the connection and getting to know the person. The money shouldn't be a thing when you're going out to eat. You know, you could use that for something else.
Now that is absolutely true.
And steak is not going to make me fall in love with you or be more interested in you. Absolutely not.
Exactly. Just imagine if more women had that perspective.
What's going to make you fall in love then?
The way he acts, the way he treats, if he's opening the door, how he carries himself, how masculine he is, the way he dresses.
She is not wrong.
Is there ever a point in time where a man should come to you about a decision, or should he handle it on his own all the time?
It depends. I feel like a very masculine man doesn't need my advice because he should know what's right from wrong. We always want to give you guys our point of view because, you know, we have instincts as women. So we tend to feel and see things in a different form than you guys, but not 100% like taking advice from.
Although this type of mindset does seem to be a rarity these days, it is rather encouraging that it still exists.
For generations, men were only taught to make money. Men were taught to show what their money could do. Nice car, nice house, nice watch. Take her somewhere impressive. Pick up the check, buy the ring, provide. Show everybody you made it. But what happens when one man look at that whole deal and says, wait, why am I paying for all of this? Or, put more simply, my wallet, my choice. And no, women didn't create all of this. Men compete with other men too, and companies have used that for decades. That sales pitch works really well until the customer starts asking why. Why replace a car that works? Why replace a phone that works? Why buy another status symbol? Why does meeting someone for the first time have to cost $150? Why am I spending money so other people can think I'm successful? Because if he can't afford it, he may still want it. If he no longer sees the value, that's much more harder to sell. Especially right now when housing, food, insurance, cars, restaurants, and dating already feel expensive. And for men, some spending has historically served another purpose. A car isn't always transportation. A cheap watch and a $10,000 watch, they both tell time. Obviously, you're buying something besides the time. You're buying what it says about you. So the real question becomes not, can I buy this? But why am I buying this? And dating is where that question gets uncomfortable.
He took me shopping and it was the first date. This is the dress. I think this is so cute. It has like butterfly applique things. And this dress in person is worth like $740, okay? This is the first time I've had a man buy something this expensive for me. We all start somewhere. I started off with asking for Ubers for my dates. I started off with asking for Michelin star experiences. Now I get a beautiful shopping experience on my first date to a beautiful restaurant. And this guy didn't even try to hold my hand.
Because modern dating has a contradiction that nobody really likes talking about. Women work, yes. Women build careers. Women own homes. Women, they make their own money. We've spent decades telling women, you don't need a man financially. Okay. But some men are now asking, if she doesn't need my money, why is spending my money still one of the ways I'm expected to prove that I'm serious? Ladies, I know. But it is a fair question because dating became modern in almost every direction. Then the check arrives, and suddenly everyone gets a little bit more traditional. Now, I understand the woman's side. A man planning a date, it feels good. Yes, a man paying could feel romantic. It shows effort. But most women are not sitting there trying to empty some guy's bank account. They simply like being courted. There's nothing wrong with that. And plenty of men want to pay. So this isn't just simple as women demanding and men paying. The issue is what happens when generosity stops feeling like a choice and starts feeling like an entry fee. Imagine a guy using a dating app, dinner, drinks, parking. They don't connect. Fine. Nobody did anything wrong. Then another first date, then another. Buying a woman dinner does not mean she owes him anything. She doesn't owe him affection. She doesn't owe him another date. She doesn't owe him a relationship. But he doesn't owe the dating market an unlimited entertainment budget either. So eventually, he just changes the format. Coffee, one drink, something simple. Let's see if we even like each other first.
Spend the money on yourself to make yourself more attractive. It's going to give you more opportunities. It's going to open more doors. You're going to have more options. You're going to make even more money. If you look expensive, if you look premium, if you look luxury, that is what you're going to attract. If you look cheap, if you wear cheap clothes, if you buy cheap food, if you go to cheap environments, you're going to attract everything that's cheap.
And now, let's watch the disagreement. One woman says, men don't code anymore. The man says, I'm tired of spending $150 to interview a stranger. Same situation, two completely different interpretations. That is the conflict. What one person sees as low effort, another sees as refusing and outdating financial expectations. And sometimes when men complain about paying, women hear, oh, he can't afford dinner. But that's not always a complaint, though. Sometimes he's asking, does she appreciate it? Does she ever offer? Does she show effort? Does she actually like me? Or is my spending simply the minimum requirement for being considered as a serious man? That's different. A guy can happily spend $200 on a woman he likes. The same guy can spend $60 on somebody who acts entitled to it and leaves irritated. So the dollar amount isn't always the problem. The expectation is. Now, men, you're not completely innocent either. Some men are cheap. Some want a traditional woman while expecting her to pay half of everything. And some men take a reasonable conversation about money and turns it into every woman is a gold digger. Marriage is always a scam. Never buy a woman anything. That's not what I'm talking about. An interesting story isn't men refusing to spend. It's men becoming more selective about what they consider worth spending on. And that goes way beyond women. Take cars. A guy looks at the payment on a new car and thinks, for what? My current car starts every morning, so he keeps it. Boring decision. But economy is built on millions of boring decisions. Now spread that attitude across cars, phones, clothes, restaurants, dating, nightlife, and subscriptions. And I want to be careful here. We do not have evidence that American men, as one giant group, suddenly stop spending across all these categories. That would be exaggerating. The more interesting question is whether some men are changing why they spend. Because the traditional sales pitch was buy this and become that guy. What happens when he doesn't care about becoming that guy anymore? That's a marketing problem. It may be a cultural one because society still sends men some traditional messages about money. Be established, be stable, provide, have something to offer, be able to support a family. At the same time, we're told traditional gender roles are disappearing. Okay, so which part is disappearing? Because people have a funny habit of becoming modern about the responsibilities that they don't want and traditional about the benefits they enjoy. Men do this too. A guy says, I want a traditional woman. Okay. Are you traditional? Because you can't expect her to work, cook, clean, handle the kids, then look at every bill and ask her where her half is. But women have to hear the reverse too. If women are financially independent and don't need men, some men are going to question why their spending is still judged by traditional dating standards. You don't need to agree, but you can't be shocked they're asking. And a man doesn't need permission to change where his money goes. He just changes it. One guy doesn't buy the new car. Nobody notices. One guy cancels the dating app. Nobody cares. One guy stops going to the club. Whatever, but multiply those decisions. And eventually somebody asks, where did the customer go? That's what makes this potentially bigger than personal finance.
The other day, my friend and I were at a happy hour, and this man sat down next to us and just started venting. He starts telling me that his wife passed away not too long ago, and dating has been really hard for him ever since. He said something that honestly didn't surprise me. He said that every woman that I meet wants money. Now, here's the interesting part. He wasn't upset that women wanted money. He was literally frustrated that they were asking for such small things. Small things like their hair, their nails, a purse, little stuff, right? And he looked at me and he said, these girls have no idea that I will buy their dream car. I'll buy them their dream house. I'll invest in their businesses, but they lose me before I ever get there because they just end up being like everybody else. And I immediately thought about all of the DMs and the comments that I get every single day. Maya, how do I ask him for money? Maya, how do I get him to buy me a bag? Maya, how do I know if he's generous? Maya, how do I get a 10K, 20K allowance? Like,
companies have spent decades learning how to sell insecurity. Your car isn't impressive enough. Your phone is old. Your clothes are outdated. Everybody else has more. You're falling behind. Upgrade. Women get their own version of this too. And here's where this gets much bigger. Marriage, housing, families. Those decisions make a dinner bill look like nothing. A house, children, insurance, retirement. And yes, potentially divorce. Now we're talking about decisions that can affect decades of somebody's life. So if some men are becoming more cautious about money generally, why wouldn't that caution show up here too? That does not mean men are done getting married. They're not. And it doesn't mean every fear men have of marriage is accurate. But if a man looks at marriage and believes the financial risk is greater than a reward, calling him broke, bitter, or scared is not going to change his calculation. You have to understand why he reached it. That's why the easiest explanation, men are broke, men are cheap, don't always work. What if some men simply looked at the old deal and said, I don't want that anymore? You cannot force someone to value a product, a lifestyle, or a relationship. Now, here's why men are done spending isn't quite right. Men will spend ridiculous amount of money on things they care about. Trucks, golf, gaming computers, tools, motorcycles, fishing equipment. The better question is, who is getting the money? Maybe less goes towards impressing strangers and more towards hobbies, less at clubs and more towards things they actually use, less on expensive first dates and more on experiences with people they already care about. From the outside, he's still spending, but the money moved. Maybe that is a silent male economy, not a spending strike, a reallocation. And if that's what's happening, a discount won't fix it because the problem isn't price, the problem is value.
I'm not paying your rent. I'm not paying your car note. I'm not paying for you to get your hair done. I'm not paying for you to get your nails done. If you cannot do that shit as a woman by yourself, I'm not going to do it for you. I don't mind doing something for a woman that does stuff for herself already.
When you spend money on yourself, you're going to feel a lot happier, more confident. Your frequency is going to rise. This is why I stress about spending money on yourself and looking more attractive, because it's going to get you more options and more opportunities.
Men have been told for years nobody owes you anything. A woman doesn't owe you attention. She doesn't owe you affection. She doesn't owe you a relationship. Correct. But some men are taking that same logic and turning it around. Okay, then nobody is automatically entitled to my resources either. My wallet, my choice. And no, that doesn't mean never buying woman dinner. A man can still pay and he can still provide. He can still be generous. The difference is spending becomes a choice, not automatic proof that he's a real man. And that is where this becomes cultural because the old script was clear. Men ask, a man plan, a man plays, a man proposes, a man provides. Women have their own traditional roles, except huge parts of that script changed. Women changed, men changed, the economy changed, dating changed, marriage changed, but some expectations stayed exactly where they were. Of course, people are arguing. Some women still want traditional courtship. Some men still love providing it. Great. Other people want something more equal. Also great. The interesting part is what happens if more men start questioning the expectations instead of automatically accepting it. Because businesses don't get to debate that choice, they get the sales number. Dating apps can't argue with the guy who deletes the app. Luxury brands can't shame somebody into wanting their product. The customer gets the final vote with his wallet. Now, men have not suddenly become immune to status. Please, have you seen the prices of some trucks? Men still compete. Men still make terrible financial decisions. Men still spend money trying to impress women. We're not talking about millions of men suddenly becoming financial monks.
I don't date men with money so they can spend it on me. I date men with money so they can spend it on themselves because I got money. I pay my own bills. I finance my own car. I paid for the wig I got on. So while I'm comfortably paying my own bills, I'm not interested in dating a man who needs help with his. I'm sorry, but I'm not that woman who co-signs for you. I'm not that woman who lets you move in when you lose your apartment. And I wish more women were like that, because a man with no money will ruin your life if you let him.
Yeah.
It is not your job to save anybody. Women need to stop trying to save these men, because most of them will take everything you got and then leave you with nothing. Rebuilding your life and your finances after you let a man ruin it all is the hardest comeback for a woman. So just don't put yourself in that position.
Yeah.
And that brings me to the question this whole conversation eventually runs into. What happens when society still expects the provider, but more men stop believing the old reward is worth the price? Simpler first dates become normal. Do women contribute more during courtship? Or does a traditional provider becomes more desirable because fewer men want that role? What happens to dating apps if men don't think the subscription is worth it? What happens to luxury brands if the guy they're targeting doesn't care about the logo anymore? What happens to nightlife if fewer men thinks dropping hundreds of dollars at a club is impressive? And then there's the biggest one: marriage, a house, a family, decades of financial responsibilities. What happens when men start asking the exact questions there? Is this worth it? Because that's when the silent male economy stops becoming a story of shopping. It becomes a story of how men are choosing to live. So, no, men aren't done spending. They're still spending. The question is whether some men are becoming much harder to convince. The car, prove it's worth the payment. The dating app, prove it's worth the subscription. The $150 first date, prove it's worth doing for somebody that I don't even know. Because if enough men choose the second option, businesses won't be the only one who notice. It's been your girlfriend Rene here. I'll see you guys in my next video.